Yeah, one it's easy. The first one it's
I'd like to
easy.
call
Short and
the
sweet.
regular meeting of the Design Review Board, Monday, May the 4th, 2015. We have a quorum. Item 4, discussion and possible action, application number 15-11 of Christopher Milliard, Phase 0 Design Agent, Grove Property Fund, Drake Hill LLC owner, for a site plan amendment for a sign permit on the property located at 720 Hop Meadow Street, Assessors Map G10, Block 227, Lot 001-2, Zone SC-1 and SC-3, received on May the 4th, 2015. Decision must be rendered by 07/08/2015. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
How are you today?
Good, thank you.
All right.
Is this the item number 27?
Yep.
So my name's Chris Millard from Phase 0 Design, here to present property 720 Hot Meadow Street, which is known as the Cannon Building. The client, Grove Properties, is looking to bring in a new tenant into the building to occupy some of the vacant space. In doing so, we've been requested by the client to fix up the patio that's there, add some guardrails, and then also add in some awnings with signage on it. So basically, these drawings that you see here depicts just that. There's a approximately 800 square foot tenant space that is going to be taken, and then this patio here to the right is all existing conditions now, but it's in poor condition. So he's looking to refurbish the existing brick patio and then add on a black metal railing around that patio, which you'll see in the next image, just to enclose it. Right now it doesn't require a guardrail, but adding the rail to it certainly makes it a little more pedestrian friendly. And also I think it just helps improve the appearance of the patio as well. These two images, basically the majority of the building is going to stay as is. And then this top image, you can see the awnings that we're proposing, and then also the guardrail around the patio. And then there'll be a new handrail at the stairs. The lower image, again, same thing. You see the new awnings with some signage, and then also the new guardrail as well in front of it. The awnings themselves are proposed to be black, and then it'll have the colors of the logo for the tenant. The total signage, right now, there's a very small amount of signage on the building. I believe it's about 7 square feet, which just happens to be a medallion. We're not adding any signage to the front of the building. We're not adding a monument sign to the building. So the new signage that we're adding is strictly building mounted or awning mounted. And the square footage is about 36 square feet, which falls within the allowable signage for the property. And honestly, that's about it. So certainly if there's any questions or comments.
How high is the guardrail?
The guardrail is 36 inches.
Okay. You said it's not required.
It's not required.
It's very decorative and it looks good, and yes, okay.
Exactly. We wanted to keep it low. You know, it doesn't need to be the height of a guardrail.
Okay.
So
it doesn't need to be the 42-inch or anything.
Correct.
Okay.
Yep. The drop from the patio down to grade is less than 30 inches. It's I think maybe 2 feet at the most, if even that. Yeah, and the guardrail is planned to be a black metal guardrail.
Let's see on the other side. Hiram, what's the allowable signage for the building?
For the total building?
Yeah.
Well, because it's such a long building, there's a significant, I don't have the exact number,
But it's a lot, right? I mean, we're not taking up 80% of the signage with this one sign, are we? It's,
I calculated, if it helps, the building frontage is 123 feet. So if I'm understanding correctly, it's 1 square foot per linear frontage.
there's plenty of signage available.
Right.
I think it looks great, personally.
Yeah,
I like it.
Thank you.
The lettering is white.
The lettering, I believe, is a cream color, if I'm not mistaken. It's based on their logo. I didn't have that color depicted because it was very specific to their
Okay.
logo, but it is a cream color if I'm,
And Hiram, is there any, it's a historical registered building, right?
Yes.
Any restrictions because of that?
Not really in this case, because it's just awnings, they're temporary. They could be removed if necessary.
Okay.
If they were structures or structural or somehow other affected the building, it would be perhaps possibly a different story.
Okay.
I guess the only question that I would have is, Chris mentioned about repairing the patio. Is that going to be another brick patio or is concrete, or what do you have?
it would be brick. We would keep the same appearance, basically, as the patio that's there now. And right now,
And
you
that's the
can
main
see-
entrance for this new business?
That's correct. And you can see the patio has been repaired in the past, and basically there's a center walkway that goes up to the door, which is newer than the sides. So the thought is, as we repair it, we would repair the entire thing so it all looks similar.
Lighting.
Lighting, there's no lighting proposed at this time. Right now, there's existing lighting on the building. There's lighting to each side of the doorway.
And what is the patio going to be used for? It's not going to have tables and chairs out there or anything?
I think it's going to be used perhaps for multi-functions, depending on how the tenant, kind of desires. I think
Okay.
they may have some events at the space where they utilize the patio, for temporary conditions.
Okay.
You set up a tent, but that would really be a temporary condition.
I want to go back to the lighting for a minute. This is going to be retail, and so it will be open after dark, certainly in the wintertime.
Yes, certainly in the wintertime.
And you've made provision for appropriate lighting
Mhm.
for safety on the stairs and so on? Okay.
This tenant space hasn't been vacant too long. There was a space in there before. I believe it was like a phlebotomy. So they, obviously they were open. They were open after dark. It's basically a continuation of just a new tenant, continued use of that space just as a new tenant.
Okay, any other questions, gentlemen?
No, I don't have any. I think it's pretty attractive.
Yeah, it's the right color and everything, so I think it fits the building.
Yeah. Well, I'll hear a motion.
Mr. Chairman, I move that application 15-11 of Christopher Mylard, Phase Zero Design Agent, Grove Property Fund, Drake Hill LLC owner, for a site plan amendment for a sign permit on the property located at 720 Hot Meadow Street, Assessors Map G10, Block 227, Lot 001-2, Zone SC-1 and SC-3, be approved as presented on whatever the date is the plan. Is there,
4/15/2015.
a plan dated 4/15/2015?
I think what we ought to do is to mention that it's not only the sign permit, it's the whole patio, et cetera, the fencing and the handrail and all that.
Oh, it said on site plan approval, so
It says site plan amendment and
All right.
sign approval.
sign permit and site plan approval.
Well, it says for a site plan amendment for a sign permit. And,
Oh, then amend it to say as presented on whatever that date is, including the railing, the rebuilt patio, what else?
as shown on that, as shown on that drawing.
And no additional lighting.
Do I have a second?
I second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you very much.
Go to the forge and start. Okay.
Item, application number 15-14 of Ed Lally and Associates Incorporated agent, Mike Gerard, President, Gerard Brothers Corporation applicant, Riverbend Holdings LLC, care of Tim Lescali, Senior Vice President owner, for a sign permit and site plan approval on the property located at 80 Wolcott Road, Assessors Map 102, Block 439, Lot 009, Zone I-1, received 5/4/2015. Decision must be rendered by 07/08/2015. Welcome.
Good afternoon. I'd like to start just before Ed Lally gets up here to
Could
explain.
you identify yourself?
Sorry, yes, Mike Gerard. I'm president of Gerard Brothers Corporation, the applicant, and also president of Simsbury Echo Farm, which is going to be the future, hopefully the future tenant.
Welcome.
Thank you for the opportunity to come before the commission this afternoon and our design review board to, with regards to our zone change application and our site plan approval application. To give you a little background, our moving of our business from the center of town up to the north end of town is something we've been talking about for a while. There's been, of course, with the charrette and everything else, the request to get into some residential down there. We're well into that process right now. You'll see that probably within the next 4 to 6 months. And in the meantime, we had to find a place to move, which is kind of a project, because not everybody, there's not a lot of places in town we can go. We looked in Bloomfield, we looked in East Granby and so forth, but we wanted to stay in Simsbury. We were lucky enough to have Riverbend come up with this piece of property, which is the former Imperial Nursery propagation set up there for their nursery. And that came up for sale late last year, and we had the opportunity to purchase this property. It's about 9.979 acres. It's not much smaller than the property we utilize now on Iron Horse Boulevard, and it's really, we feel it's a very appropriate for the use, for an I-2 zone. We also plan to move our office facilities from 2 Farms Village Road. We were kind of separate right now. It'd be very good if we were together as far as the business goes. It's worked out since 1987. For 1987 at 2 Farms Village Road, and since 1969 down at Iron Horse with the shop. So we want to bring both those together. So the intent is to bring sell both pieces of property and move to this new piece of property to build a new facility, both office and shop. I'd like to introduce Ed Lally. Ed can get into the technical part of the application, and we also have building renderings here, which we can do a little later.
If you could take one of those and pass, and then take one of those and pass. Afternoon. Excuse me. For the record, my name's Ed Lally. I'm a licensed professional engineer and land surveyor, and I have an office in Windsor. And I've been asked by Gerard Brothers Corporation and Simscroft Echo Farms through Mike Gerard to prepare plans for their new corporate facility and construction yard at 80 Wolcott. It's currently an I-1 zone, but we have an application into the zoning commission to change it to an I-2. That will do a couple things. It will eliminate the existing nonconformance as to lot area, because in the I-1 zone, there's a 10-acre minimum lot requirement, and this is not 10 acres. It will also provide some much-needed land for Phonon, who's another applicant before you tonight, to expand their parking. Right now, they don't need any more building space, but they do desperately need parking space, and so to keep them in town, Mike has agreed to provide them with excuse me, an area for 30 extra parking spaces. Basically, on the property, which currently contains about 9.8 acres, there's an existing 150-foot by 50-foot building, which will remain. A new building with 6,400 square feet of office space, and Mike will speak to the building in a few moments, is proposed in this location, and behind it there is a 6,000 square foot vehicle storage and maintenance facility in this area. There's also a proposed addition, which will be based on their future needs, the timing of its construction, based on their future needs. It contains 3,000 square feet. A 40 by 60 foot salt storage building, meeting all DEP requirements, is proposed towards the rear of the site. Currently, there's an existing drive that goes into the site. 2 more drives will be proposed, one to the south and one to the north. The south drive will be utilized for mostly heavy traffic and construction equipment. This existing center drive will be a mixed use with lighter trucks and cars coming to the office space. And then the northern drive will be predominantly vehicles accessing the office and employee entrance. An existing fence goes entirely around the property. The portion of the fence will be relocated into this location. This fence will remain, as will the vegetation that's along the fence, and the fence across the front will be relocated back from the street and integrated with the building so that there'll be security of the facility, but the fence won't be so obvious if you drive down the street. There are, excuse me, there are some existing screening vegetation plants in this area and here. Those will be greatly enhanced with a raised berm down here with some decorative planting, and I've passed out a list of the plants that have been selected, which will run by your town staff. There'll be another berm. There's some plants here that'll be also enhanced. There'll be a very decorative landscaping berm and some shade trees in here, and a berm to the north in front of the new Phonon parking area. The 2 properties along the new property line will be separated by a complete screen so that the Phonon site, which is less industrial in its character, will be totally screened from this site. The front portion of the property will be paved. This portion of the property will be a heavy gravel surface, which will be used for the storage of predominantly construction materials, excavators, backhoes, and those types of equipment. All storage and maintenance repair would take place inside the building, which has a floor drain which ties to an oil water separator before it ties to the sanitary sewer. The balance of the site will have a light gravel treatment with and be used for the storage of earth products in this area and construction material, catch basins, piping, and that sort of thing to the rear. Fairly well removed from the street and screened by the proposed buildings and the landscape berms. The drainage system is one of absorption. This is highly absorptive soil. Mike did some tests out there to 14 feet, and the soil is dry as bone. There are no wetlands involved on this property. There's no floodplain involved in this property, and wetlands is over here, and we're well outside the regulated area of the wetlands. So we have no concerns there. We are concerned about silt and sediment, possible erosion during really heavy storms, and so the lower portion of the site is completely rimmed by a swale, identical to the one that the DEP has approved and has been functioning for years at the Iron Horse Boulevard site. Both of those drain down to a oversized siltation basin. The siltation basin is required to receive the flow from 1-inch rainfall. This is 24 times bigger than required by the DEP. So we're also not only having a settlement basin that will form for not only the 1-inch rainfall, but the 2 and almost most of the water from the 5-year storm, but also has a retention impact. The net result of the absorption system for all the runoff from the paved surfaces, which would go into catch basins and then into perforated underground structures to allow the water to be absorbed by the soil. And the retention basin is a reduction in both the volume and the rate of stormwater runoff from the site. So while the site previously had very little vegetation and won't have a lot of vegetation when we're done, we're replicating the conditions that existed before this property was even disturbed. There are some new lights proposed around the office area. There's a couple in front here and a couple on the side here. That's for the parking that would be mostly utilized by people who are there either early in the morning or late in the evening, predominantly office staff. And those lights are on 14-foot poles, which is 2 feet higher than the ceiling approximately. And they are full cutoff shoebox style, dark sky compliant, and contrary to what the plan says, they will be LED lights because of the energy consumption. We've tried to have a minimal impact on this site. We're maintaining all the existing vegetation around the perimeter. We're adding quite a bit of vegetation around the front, and Mike will show you what the buildings are going to look like, and I think you'll find those to be attractive as well. If you have any questions of me, I'll answer them. I'll try to answer them after Mike speaks. Thank you.
Okay. I'd like to pass these through while we're done. These are the two handouts that one gives you kind of a location of the actual property. The one with all the huts on it from the nursery, original nursery stock is where the property actually is. Other references would be the Herman Drive as well as the town landfill and Fonon. Okay. The other handout is for is a small version of what we have up here.
Okay.
And there's basically what we have is two different. Actually, they're color combinations.
You're next to one of those. Then.
Swoopy, all set.
Thanks.
Okay. There's two different color combinations. One is basically white with gray, and then one is the dark green with gray. What this provides us is, if you're driving down the street, what you'll see is this face of this building is what you're basically going to see. From the back, you can see what we did was we tried to, I don't want to say hide the commercial building, but basically hide the commercial building to the back. If you look down the driveways, you're going to obviously see the buildings. You're going to see possibly some of the equipment. For the most part, though, driving by, you'll see a parking lot in front, and you'll see the face of an office building. The building itself, this is shown for the full development of the building. It's 200 feet long, 60 feet wide, 14 feet high. It's a Butler building, and basically completely metal, well insulated. The doors are basically situated to meet what we need to do. As Ed mentioned, anything that happens in the building goes through the proper sanitary sewer and oil separating process before it gets to where it goes. We're going to pave. The paving would stop about right here, and that's probably where this would be gravel back here, because we can't have paved areas with track machines. We have to use gravel, because otherwise it just gets all torn up. So everything from here back would be, and from here back would be gravel. This would be all blacktop over through here. This is the north elevation, so this is what would be closest to Fonon. This would be closest to the south side, which is basically all trees. And then I'm standing way in the back of the property over here. And of course, this is just right by. We also tried to break up a big long building with kind of stepping it back as we went to give it a little bit of character. And what we're looking at is a gray building with white trim on the office building. It would be vinyl siding, and basically the lighting, of course, would be there's no lighting shown in these particular buildings, but they'd have probably more decorative and something that's nice on the building. I think that's about it. Any questions?
The site plan was showing an existing structure.
Yes.
Do you have, are you going to use it?
Yes.
Do you have it, I mean, are you going to do renovations to it? Is it in the picture or?
I have a picture of it I can show you, but it's a 7,500 square foot building. It's 150 feet long, 50 feet wide. It was built in 1989. It's in very, very good condition. We would clean up whatever needs to be cleaned up to make it look presentable. You know, they hit the building here and there. We'd have to do some repairs, but that's not a big problem. From the street, there are a big row of pine trees in the front that kind of hide it. And then in addition to that, we'd do some more landscaping there to basically kind of hide the building, in effect, okay? Because the face of that building looks like a commercial building,
Okay.
but it's there. And it's about 50 feet off the street, roughly. So it's not right up against the street. It sets back quite a bit, so there's room for us to do a little landscaping there to hide it. And of course, the fence across the front of the whole property right now is not very attractive, and that's going to be pushed back.
Good. No, I like the fact that they put all the offices in front.
There's, I remember, there's a big white building right on the road there, right?
Across the street. There was a barn along the street on this property that was demoed probably, must be several years ago now. I don't remember it coming down, but I think the old pictures.
The old picture, I think, still has it. Right, it's this one here, right?
That's correct, that building is gone.
This is gone
That
now,
building's
right?
gone. This is the existing building right here.
Here.
And all these other things are, they're
Gone.
huts.
They're huts, yeah, they're like plastic,
Okay. Yeah,
Hoop houses.
yeah.
They're hoop houses.
okay.
They grew all the small plants there, before they moved them into the big million other huts that they have. There's quite a few over there. Any other questions?
Well, the same question I had for the previous applicant. Lighting after dark, how is that handled?
The parking lots will be handled through light poles, the adequate light poles, which are,
Yes, there are a few lights proposed. There is a light here near the front of the building, another light here, and two over here. There's two lights over here, and the rest of the area will be pretty much his employees and not utilized much after dark, except for bringing a vehicle back and parking it or something like that. But the parking area in front of the building has four 14-foot lights, and there's two lights on this side. There's a row of parking here, and then a row of parking here and here, so we have lights near the parking. Then again, as Mike had said, there'd be some, decorative fixtures next to each of the doors when you go in and out, so it lights the landing right in front of you. But those are really decorative, not broadcasting lights.
we also would have some lights off the building to a certain extent, which along
The industrial building.
the metal building.
Yeah.
Yeah, the metal building would have, might have lights here near the entrance and a couple going down that would be lit right off the building. There's also a light pole there with a street lamp.
Right.
We may relocate that in the yard where we park the equipment, which the trucks are planned for over this area here, but the heavy equipment is over and through here. So we may end up with some Northeast Utility type.
Well, it seems to me you're going to have some lighting.
Yeah. So we can work.
For operations after dark.
That's right. We do a lot of snow plowing, and we do work there are emergency calls at night and so forth, so we have to have the proper lighting on the property.
Well, I think perhaps what we should do here when we do the motion is to include, if Hiram's happy with us, that we'll include that the yard and the operation building will be lit, and you will submit to staff that plan for their approval. Is that all right, Hiram?
Yeah, that's fine. I would say that typically, I think what the board is looking for is that the lighting would be limited to the extent possible, so that it doesn't trespass off the property. Obviously, if the applicant needs to light the property for working conditions, I think that would be probably certainly reasonable and desirable. But I think that's it. And if we could take a look at it when the actual lights are selected and work with them on that, sure.
What are those two buildings behind Fonan, between there and the airport?
Right here?
No,
Behind Fonan.
yeah, somewhere in there.
I think he's talking about these buildings back here.
Those are
I
aircraft
think they're
hangars.
hangars.
Oh, are they? Okay.
You can see the runway there. We're about
Yes,
100
yes, see the
from this
runway.
corner, we're about 100 feet off the runway.
Yeah, that's the runway.
Okay.
This corner, yeah, this corner right here,
Oh, that
excuse me.
front corner
right here.
there.
About 100 feet off, pretty much. And the hangars are, they've got stockpile of some equipment here, the airport does now, and there's two rows of hangars right here. And then, of course, they've got all the hangars along the
Yes, the temporary ones, yeah.
Any other questions?
I'm glad they stay in Simsbury. Very nice. I'm glad they stay in Simsbury
Thank you.
and nothing more, you know,
Yep, you got it. Okay, we've got one.
a nice
area
looking
for the
building.
town, yeah.
So we have phone on next.
So you're just going to,
Oh, yeah, you should mention that. One other item.
This is. No, probably better just pass that down. That is, forgot to mention the sign. I don't, is this working fine? It's,
Yeah, it's for SCTV
Okay.
as opposed to.
This is for our sign. Basically, what it is the sign we have now, or similar to the sign what we have now, with a different address. That's basically it. It's got our logo and the bulldozer and basically the street address. The white frame and the colors, the green logo, and the light gray or medium gray bulldozer.
is this the sign on West Street?
It's the same sign as West
Okay.
Street. Yes.
Were there any plans for shrubbery around the light at the
Yes,
base?
yes. It would be lighted and it would, from the ground, and it would also have some landscaping around it.
Any further questions?
With all the lighting, there's no problem with the airport, with all the lighting you have there?
No, I don't believe so. We wouldn't put any lighting way to the back of the properity over here.
Okay.
Anyway, there would be no lighting here, which is,
That's where the airport
around.
is, okay, the runway
be-
is, anyway.
Right, so basically, let's put it this way, we'd be very sensitive to that, and we would talk to them before we did anything back there to make sure it worked for them. I have no problem with that. Any other questions? Okay, thank you.
Just not on this property. What's happening to your now current two properties on West Street and,
They're gonna be, I'm gonna sell them, both
Okay.
properties, one at a time. First Iron Horse and then my office.
okay.
What's your time schedule for this?
I hope very soon. We've been working on the Iron Horse proposal now for almost 3 years. Ed has also done a tremendous amount of work on it, and we're into FEMA right now for some verifications that we need to have in order to proceed. And once we have that, we can talk to hopefully we've got some prospective buyers, so we would be talking to them, and then it'd be nice to see something happen within, I don't think it'd be unreasonable to say, a year.
It's just a weird question. Are your clocks going with you out there?
Probably.
So I know where to get them, okay.
Make a
All
motion?
right. I'll hear a motion.
I'd like to make
Do that?
make a motion for application number 1514 of Ed Lally and Ed Lally Associates, Agent Mike Gerard, President, Gerard Brothers Corporation, applicant Riverbend Holdings LLC, care of Tim, and I'm sorry, Lescalit, Senior Vice President Owner, for a sign permit and site plan approval for property located at 80 Wolcott Road, Assessors Map 102, Block 439, Lot 009, Zone I-1, as submitted.
All right.
Do you want to list all the documents that were submitted?
I think you need to have some, is there any?
So there's a site planting plan that was submitted.
There's a 13-sheet set of site plans that are part of the application.
Okay.
Mind if you just want to reference them as submitted, and I can list them.
Right, and we can reference the drawings as submitted. There's also a project narrative. An aerial photo outlining the area
Renderings.
and the renderings, Borghese renderings. Sheet A2.
I can't read that small.
Oh, is it the date?
5/4, dated 5/4.
It could be 5/4, yes, that, the building rendering is 5/4. No, so I think you have a sign.
And the signage, dated 4/16.
Any comment? All in favor?
Aye.
I'm sorry, we need a second.
Is there a second on that, Jim?
I'll second it.
1 second.
Now we go all in favor.
All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. I'm glad you're moving, and I'm glad you're moving inside Simsbury. Congratulations. Looks great. We'll see what goes as part of the plan for Iron Horse. I really think it's great. It's the other end, so we can maybe fill it in the middle. Great. Right. Item number 3, application number 15-16 of Ed Lally and Associates Incorporated agent, Phonon Corporation, care of Tom A. Martin, President and Board Chairman Owner, for a site plan amendment on the property located at 90 Wolcott Road, Assessors Map J02, Block 439, Lot 009C, Zone I-1, received 5/4/2015. Decision must be rendered by July 8th, 2015.
Good evening.
Maybe,
For the record,
yeah.
Ed Lally, addressing the application of Phonon Corporation for their property at 90 Wolcott Road. This property also has an application into the zoning commission for a zone change from I-1 to I-2. Again, this will also, as with the prior application, eliminate the existing nonconformance as to lot area. And the current parcel is 1.54 acres or thereabouts, and Gerard Brothers Corporation is going to deed to Phonon about 0.4 acres, which is located right here, just to the south of the existing Phonon building and Phonon parking lot. The Phonon site, the Phonon company is quite impressive in their success. If you look at their website, you'll be very impressed as to the technology that they utilize in making the products they use and the uses those products are put to. And they have been in Simsbury a while, and they have very high-paying jobs, and they have a need for more parking because they want to stay here. And so this has worked out really well because Mike had a little bit extra land, and they were in need of this 0.4 acres, which will allow them to add a double row of parking and 2 access drives for a net increase of 30 parking spaces. They require 81 on their site as to the zoning regulations, but their use is such that they already have 92 spaces and they need more, so they're going to 122 spaces, and this will be a great relief for their business, because they were considering valet parking kind of thing, or busing, have people park in a remote location, busing them to work, and that just doesn't work out with employees. And so this is great for them. The new parking also reduces the existing nonconformance of the existing parking lot to the property line. Even though it doesn't reduce it a lot, it still does reduce it. There will be no change to the building, and there'll be no change to the lighting. The existing lights have been field located, and we've designed landscape islands around them so that those lights can stay, and the new parking can be serviced by them. The current drainage on that site is to absorption system, letting the water soak into the ground. The soils are very porous and very receptive of this, and it replicates what happened before we started paving the parking lots and building roofs. And so we've designed the new drainage system with 3 catch basins along the side, connected by I think it's a 30-inch perforated pipe, which provides a lot of storage volume, and then it's perforated and it soaks into stone. It may only be 24, I can't remember the actual detail, but it's a large pipe. And there will be no outflow from this system up to a 25-year storm, which is a pretty intense rainfall. At a 50-year storm, it would pond 14/100ths of an inch in the catch basins, which would be a very small area about the size of a large desk. And that ponding would then go down in a matter of 20 minutes to a half an hour. In a 50-year storm, everybody's pretty amazed that most everything isn't flooding. So the design is conservative. As discussed before, there'll be a new berm along the street with new landscaping, both flowering shrubs, shade trees, and some other appealing vegetation. I passed out a list with the prior application. It's the same plant selection. There'll be a new row of evergreens, as I had mentioned, and those can be a mixture of the evergreen trees that are on our list, so we don't have a monoculture, and if you get some kind of disease in there, it doesn't wipe out everything. In fact, that usually doesn't get a disease because you don't have a monoculture. And again, as I said, there are no new lighting proposed, no change to the building. But this is a revision to an improved site plan as well as a zone change application before zoning. If you have any questions, I'll try and answer them.
Nope.
Thank you.
No questions, no comments?
Pardon?
No, I'm still. I'll hear a motion.
I'll make a motion that the application 15-16 of Ed Lally and Associates, Inc., Agent Fona and Corp., Kiratano A. Martin, President and Board Chairman, owner for a site plan amended on property located at 90 Walcott Road, Assessor's Map J02, Block 439, Lot 009C, Zone I-1, received 5/4/2015, be approved as submitted.
I second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you.
It's nice that neighbors work together.
You're going to have a separate room for your clocks?
Nice to see you, Mike.
Do we have any correspondence, Hiram?
No, not as far as I know, John, and I have to apologize. The minutes from your last meeting I was to get together, and I didn't finish those yet, so you'll have them next time.
Do we have minutes tonight? Approval of the minutes of April the 20th, 2015.
So move.
Any comment? I have a second.
Second.
All in favor?
Yes.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Hiram, go ahead, I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
Hiram, is there any shovel in the ground for any of these apartments, except for Carson Way?
Well, Carson Way actually isn't started yet either, Tony. as you know, the Dorset Crossing Apartments.
That one is done. Yeah, that's what I meant,
They're
Dorset.
working on that.
That's about ready to move in, yeah.
The other one that was approved was south of the Northeast Utilities property.
Yes.
I know it's Eversource now, but I still call it Northeast Utilities. That's not underway yet either. They're going through the DOT process right now.
Okay.
Carson Way is also at the same stage. They're going through the DOT process. Those are the large ones that I'm aware of that they're going through that process right now.
How about the Ensign House, Ensign Pickford House?
They had a situation where, obviously, as you know, one of the partners, Jack, is deceased, so they're working through some financial things now, and believe that hopefully before the summer's over, they'll begin to work on the first part of that project as well. My understanding is that, as I may have explained to you, the back portion of that project is a new building, obviously, new buildings. So the front portion is going to require a completely different sort of mindset, perhaps a different contractor in terms of the restoration. So the project is actually sort of, will go forward with the first part, the existing building first. Yep. And then the plan is that the other buildings will come along after that. So they're trying to work through some of that scheduling and timing issues right now, along with some of their partnership issues. But my understanding is it's still on track to go forward sometime soon.
And I've just got one. What about our famous church? St. Mary's across the street in the temporary building.
They actually came back to the zoning commission a few months ago with a plan. I'm not sure I'm allowed to call it that yet, because they have a very specific process that they have to go through with the Archdiocese. I think that's the right term, David. And until they get that approval, they weren't even allowed to say that it was actually a plan. It was just a suggestion that they were going to bring to the Archdiocese. I think that the zoning commission in general was favorably impressed with how the thought that had gone into it. They had a committee that's looked at a number of different options. There were buildings in various locations that they were looking at. I think they explained that to the zoning commission as well. What it does is it brings the buses in from a different direction, unloads them behind the structure, hopefully eliminates some of the potential traffic on Hop Meadow when the buses are unloading. We should see that back again. I'm not sure exactly when, but I would say sometime probably this fall, assuming they can get the approval of the Archdiocese. So they are working on it. I think initially when they came in, as you all remember, they got a little bit cart ahead of the horse and that there weren't any permits for the temporary structures, but they took the comments seriously and are working through that now and have come back with a plan that they expect to be back with. So, yeah.
At least they're working. That was really, they're coming back with something and talking to us. It's not.
Yeah, exactly. I was as surprised as anyone else when the modular unit showed up. They actually, interestingly enough, talked about the fact that this plan that they've come up with now is sort of a result of some of the security planning that they had done with regard to keeping the kids safe and so on. I'm not sure exactly, because I never read that report, how that sort of figures that moving them into a temporary structure improves that, but anyway, their security people were happier with that. So I think that sometime in the near future we'll see that plan, and I think it'll be a good step forward there.
What about Cumberland Farms?
It's going forward.
Actually, yeah.
Saw the plans the other 3 weeks ago. They were out to bid 3 weeks ago.
Oh, are they? Yeah.
Yeah, we actually have a pre-construction meeting with them on Wednesday this week. They would like to start as soon as possible. They have to orchestrate. There's another sort of interesting dance, because they want to do the modifications to the existing building, pool barn building, at the same time they'll be doing the other construction. So there are going to be two crews there at the same time, trying to stay out of each other's way. So it'll be interesting. But people were initially concerned, I think it's fair to say, that only the convenience store would go forward and that the barn would be left. And I think Tom Evans, the owner, has been very straightforward with regard to the fact that he said, look, I promised to do the building, I want to do the building, and so they're going to do that at the same time as well. Whether that's going to be 100% completely finished on the inside or not is another matter. I think he's going to want to see which tenants come in order to finish that up. But it should start fairly soon as well. I would say probably within 2 or 3 weeks. Yeah.
What the property that Simsbury Echo is moving from over there, what is that zone, that piece of property zoned for?
Based upon what came out of the charrette, Paul, that's going to be residential property. So it'll be zoned residential. As Mike said, they've been talking to a number of different people. A number of people have come in with sort of schematic plans, and we're kind of looking for something that actually complies with what the charrette suggested there on that plan.
Are there any environmental issues with that site?
Well, what has also been done is that initially there were some concerns with regard to flood elevations. And they actually, Simscroft has gone through a very extensive process of mapping, surveying, finding out what the elevations are, and making sure that the development that they proposed are not in the floodplain. And so that plan that they brought in, I've signed off on it, actually sent that off to FEMA. And once FEMA looks at that and approves it, hopefully, that will put everything in very clear alignment as to where that flood line is and where they can't go any further.
When you,
To that extent, there are no other environmental issues other than the floodplain.
Good.
Yeah.
when you're talking residential, are you talking detached, single family?
It's probably going to be a variety of structures. There's no,
How big is that property?
well, originally it was about 14 acres. When they get finished with the flood line, it may be 12, something like that. I'm not sure exactly where that line's going to fall. So it'll probably be around 12 acres. The initial plan from the charrette had a road that went in and around the total outside so that people could go in and drive around the outside. I think that many people that have looked at the property have decided they really didn't want to put the money into that roadway. They'd rather have the units sort of toward the outside to overlook the meadows, to overlook the ridge and so on. I mean, there's 420 acres of open space there that these units will look out over. So it could be properly designed. It could be a really outstanding development, walkable to everything. So that should be really something. And frankly, what I'm looking for as a staff person is I'm going to be really hard on whoever comes in, because I want to see an outstanding design for the center of town. I just don't think we want to see just kind of somebody come in and put up anything you could see anywhere.
That's not, somebody raised the question about wetlands or that issue.
That's right. We're working on that now. He knows where
I
those...
remember years ago when I first came to town and I was building, the property that's now the soccer fields and
Yep.
whatever it is, was owned by someone by the name of Vincent, and there was some question about that being at a grade below, and unbuildable.
Yeah. Well, I think that a large part of that area is in the floodplain. There's lots of work going on right now with regard to discussions over the senior center, community center issue, and where that floodplain line is with regard to that building and the Performing Arts Center as well. So we're taking a look at, Mr. Gerard has looked at that issue on his property, and the portion that you're referring to, Paul, is just to the south of that. We're taking a look at that right now to find out where exactly that line is, to see how that's going to affect the community center, senior center. So, lots of moving parts there in that whole area, no question about it. Soccer field's one thing, some other buildings are, we'll see.
The floodplain line was moved east, about 10 years ago?
Yeah, 2008 was the last design of that, and our regulations reflect that. So whether we like those maps or not, those are the ones we're required to go by FEMA. If anybody disagrees with that line, and some property owners along Hop Meadow have said, we don't think the line is there, they're welcome to come in with their surveys. Unfortunately, they've got to do a hydraulic analysis, which can get fairly expensive. We're talking about $25,000, $35,000. And then they put that report together and bring that to us. We look at it, an engineer looks at it, and if we agree with them, we'll sign off on it and send that off to FEMA and hope that that line gets moved. If we don't agree with them, then they're stuck with that line. So we understand fully that has some serious implications with regard to development. So we're very careful about making sure that we're fair with those things as well. But we don't want to build buildings in the floodplain that are going to obviously suffer damage or strand people either. So it's a...
Speaking of which, what happened with the small house, the property next to the Flower Bridge?
Oh, interesting. There's a meeting coming up, I believe it's on the 11th, just
Yes.
before the Board of Selectmen meeting, their next Board of Selectmen meeting. A number of people have submitted suggestions, and so I think that the Board of Selectmen, I think it's the 11th, I'm not
It is the
positive on that
11th.
date, are
5 o'clock.
receiving suggestions to talk about that. So there's been no decision about that yet. We just don't know, to be honest with you. Some of the suggestions have come in are quite nice, and so we'll see what happens.
Mr. Chairman, I move that we adjourn.
I hear a second.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you very much.